What's up, all my Ewoks, Tribbles, Droids, and Wookiees? It's Anna, also known as that Star Wars girl, and today I'm going to be talking about George Lucas and the rumors going around about him potentially coming back to Lucasfilm, taking over Kathleen Kennedy's job as the president of Lucasfilm, and that there's a George Lucas cut of The Rise of Skywalker and the entire sequel trilogy. Now, I can't tell by the thumbnail and the title of this video, I don't believe any of that. They are just hopeful, wishes and rumors going around by fans that love George Lucas. Now, I haven't done a video on any of these rumors yet because I don't think that they have any ground to stand on. The only reason I'm doing a video now is because people asked me about it in my live stream, and when I gave, my reasoning and my thought process behind it based on facts in life that surround George Lucas, a lot of people didn't know any of this information. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to make a video about it to explain all of this to everyone, so that way everyone kind of knows. And I understand not everyone, has time to go out and, research George Lucas's life and, the aspects of filmmaking and what it's like to work, with certain companies. Before I get into it, though, I do want to address, because I already know people are going to blow up my comment section about this. Yes, my tongue is red. It's because I don't like coffee, and so I drink caffeine with Mio in it, and that changes my tongue red, but it gives me energy. So, getting that off the table. That's why my tongue is a different color in every single video. But moving on to the topic of today's video. So I'm gonna explain to you why, based on George Lucas's personal life and professional life, why it makes absolutely no sense and why there is, no ground to stand on with any of these rumors. And again, they're just rumors that are hopeful thinking and wishes of people that actually love Star Wars and would love to see the man that created everything come back. So let's talk about his personal life first, because this is what people were truly shocked about. So George Lucas met this woman named Melody Hobson back in 2006, I believe. It was either 2000 or 2006. And they began dating. They got married in 2013, about a year after he had sold Lucasfilm over to Disney. Now, Melody right now is 51 years old. George Lucas is 76 years old. They have a child together. Their little girl, Everest, is 6 years old. Melody is from Chicago, and she runs a business in Chicago. It's a financing stock type of business, and it's a very successful business, and I believe it's one of the top companies in the United States that is African American run business, and that's what she does. She's a businesswoman. She and George actually met at a business conference. They fell in love, they were dating, they decided to get married and have a baby. Now, obviously, when you have a baby later on in life, because their daughter's only 6 years old, she's still little. She basically would be in kindergarten or first grade right now. But George Lucas and Melody, they aren't raising their daughter in California. They're raising her in Chicago because that's where Melody's family is. That's where they live. I wasn't aware that a lot of people did not know that. George Lucas does not live at the Skywalker Ranch. That's one of his homes. Usually people that are billionaires have multiple homes, but his headquarters now is in Chicago because that's where his wife lives. That's where her family is. That's where they're raising their daughter. When George Lucas was announcing that he wanted to do the Skywalker Museum, all about Star Wars and, possibly THX and American Graffiti, he wanted it to be in Chicago, and the city of Chicago said no, so it's going to be in LA. A lot of people probably wondered, why would he have it in Chicago? It's probably because, and I actually know for a fact it's because that's where he lives. That's where his wife lives. That's where his wife grew up. That's where they're raising their child. So it would be very convenient for George Lucas, when he already lives there, to take his 6-year-old child to this museum about, daddy's life and daddy's legacy. But again, that did not get approved by the city of Chicago. A lot of people from Modesto, which is where George Lucas grew up, where I grew up, where I went to high school, at the same high school that George Lucas went to. Everyone from Modesto wanted it to be in Modesto because it's kind of a landmark. That's what Modesto is known for, mainly, is that George Lucas went to high school. George Lucas is from Modesto, California. That's where American Graffiti takes place, is in Modesto, California. It would make sense to have the George Lucas, the Skywalker Museum in Modesto. But didn't happen. It's happening in LA, which George Lucas was not too happy about, but financially, that's where it would make sense to build this Skywalker Museum. And so, looking at that aspect, as the aspect that George Lucas is 76 years old, he has a 6-year-old, he might not make it to see his 6-year-old, be a teenager, be in, 20s, 30s. He might not even be able to make it to see his 6-year-old, get married one day or go to college or graduate high school. Why would he spend, the precious amount of time that he has left working on a franchise that got destroyed, that, you know, broke his heart to see these characters that he loved, that he basically his baby get destroyed, to work with people that betrayed him. Now let's get on to the, you know, professional, the business aspect of why George Lucas would never come back to Lucasfilm, or especially if Bob Iger was still there and if Kathleen Kennedy were still there. Let's get on to that side. So, for those of you that do not know, or did not read it, or did not, you know, watch the video I did on it, Bob Iger released his, you know, bio documentary book on himself, basically talking about his entire career. Now, the Star Wars chapter of this book is very telling. I did an hour-long video about it. You can go check it out. The link is in the description of this video if you want a more in-depth analysis of it. But just kind of to give an overview of what happened. George Lucas, when he was approached by Bob Iger, was under the impression that he was going to get the John Lasseter deal. Now, what that is, what Bob Iger goes into in this book, which, again, I don't know why his publicist thought this was a good idea, because it shows his true colors to a fucking T, but because it's Bob Iger and it's all sprinkled in there with, you know, frosting and cupcake and glitter, it makes it seem, to, you know, a normie that, oh, what a nice guy. But in reality, when you actually read it, it shows what a terrible person Bob Iger is and what he did to George Lucas. So what Bob Iger did to George Lucas was he made George think he was getting the John Lasseter deal. Now, what the John Lasseter deal was when Bob Iger was at, I believe it was Tokyo Disney, he was watching the, you know, Disney parade, and he noticed that all of the popular characters were characters of Disney that were from, you know, 10 years before, 20 years before. It wasn't any of the modern Disney characters that were popular. And characters that were really popular were characters like Woody, like Buzz Lightyear. Buzz Lightyear to this day is the #1 selling toy for the Disney store. Isn't that crazy? Everyone wants to buy Buzz Lightyear still to this day. During Christmas time, that is their #1 selling toy to this day. So, you know, it made sense for Bob Iger. He saw, because they were doing distribution for Pixar, but they didn't own Pixar. So what Bob Iger did was he was friends with Steve Jobs. He approached Steve Jobs, I want to buy Pixar. Why is Pixar so great? Oh, it's because, you know, George and Steve and John Lasseter formed this company, which was Pixar. George was out of it because he was doing his own thing. Steve Jobs was still involved in it. Bob Iger went to Steve Jobs, said, I want to buy Pixar, but also he wanted John Lasseter. He wanted John Lasseter's creative genius to come and take over the creative and the writing process over at Disney. So that's why when he did acquire Pixar, he got it for John Lasseter's creative genius, because John Lasseter was the one that brought the magic to Pixar and made Pixar what it was. And then he brought his creative genius over to Disney, so he was juggling too. So George Lucas, knowing John Lasseter, being friends with John Lasseter, knowing the entire aspects of the business deal between Pixar and Disney when Bob acquired it, that's what George Lucas wanted. Bob Iger said, and this is the way that he presented, he even says it in the damn book, is that he got George enter into these deals under the impression that he was getting the John Lasseter deal, which was that Bob Iger and Disney was going to buy the company, but they left John Lasseter in charge of the creative aspect. And that's what George Lucas thought he was getting. He thought he was going to sell over his IP to Disney. They were going to be in charge of the distribution and every single other aspect. And he was just going to be left to solely be the creative genius behind everything and be able to continue to tell these stories. That's what George Lucas thought. And guess what? Egos butt heads, and Bob Iger was like, what, you thought I was going to spend, because they got into a little tiff about money, and George Lucas wanted the over $7 billion deal that Pixar got, but Bob Iger said, no, you're not getting that, because guess what, Pixar had all these movies, Pixar was bringing in income, Pixar was popular, but guess what, Star Wars, the prequels didn't do so well, George, you don't have any movies in the work, which they did, which Disney kind of pushed under, They pushed it under the bed to hide, the mess, because they didn't like it. They didn't want to show George Lucas's fairy movie that he made for his daughters. Nobody knew that this movie came out or that this movie existed, because Bob Iger was ashamed of it, and they just kind of rushed the production. They changed everything about it, and they just kind of hid it. That way nobody would know about this thing that George Lucas had that was so far into production, that when they bought it, they couldn't scrap it because it was so far into production that they just kind of had to release it, but they basically hid it. They shadow banned this damn movie. So basically, because George Lucas didn't have any, foreseeable profit in the future like Pixar did, Bob Iger said, no, we are not giving you the Pixar deal, George. We're not going to spend $7 billion. You don't deserve that. We're going to give you less. So it became this battle of how much money George was going to sell it. And because of that, it caused bad blood. And Bob Iger basically said to George, I'm not spending $4 billion and letting you be in charge of it. So that's why when George was leaving, he appointed Kathleen Kennedy, somebody that he had worked with, that he had known for 20 years, that he thought he could trust, and she even lied straight to his face in that interview. We've all seen it. And it was kind of like an FU to Bob Iger, because he put a woman in charge. What's gonna happen? We all know what was going on around that time. If Bob Iger went and, fired the woman that George Lucas appointed, he would get absolutely crucified, so he had to leave her in charge. But so there's this bad blood between George Lucas and Bob Iger, and especially bad blood between George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen obviously hated George, and she hated everything that she had to do to, even though she worked with these men for 20 years, and apparently she was oppressed because she had to work for men. Oh my God, how terrible. Men thought that you were professional and gave you a fucking job. Oh, how fucking terrible. And so George has been betrayed by Kathleen Kennedy. He was stabbed in the back. Bob Iger was basically, he made the deal with the devil, and halfway through, when he wanted to pull out because he found out he wasn't getting the Pixar deal, Bob Iger was like, if you pull out, George, guess what's going to happen? You were already so far into this, I'm going to, it's going to cost you $500 million to pull out of this deal. You have to sell it to me, or it's going to cost you $500 million and you're going to lose everything anyway. So you might as well sell it to me, George. So he's been betrayed by these people. He's been stabbed in the back by these people. He's had to, look the devil in the eye, basically. And then when he thought the only hope that he had was that he had sequel treatments, and then find out when they come to Skywalker Ranch and show it to him, and he's like, this isn't what I sold you guys. You guys lied to me even, on top of the other lies, on top of stabbing me in the back, you lied to me even further. Why the hell, again, with the little bit of years left that he has, why on earth would he come and work with these people that stabbed him in the fucking back, betrayed everything, destroyed this franchise, destroyed his baby in a way? Why on earth would he come back to work with these people on these things that he hates when he doesn't have that much time left that he could be spending with his little girl, with his wife, with his other children? Doesn't make any sense, does it? That's what I thought, and apparently not a lot of people knew all of this information, so that's why I decided to do this video on it. I hope that this has been a little eye-opening. I know it's exciting to think of the aspect of George Lucas coming back and, fixing Star Wars, of taking Kathleen Kennedy's job. He's not going to, because him and Bob Iger have such bad blood between them. He's not going to come back and fix the sequel trilogy because he hates it. That's a waste of his time. He doesn't have that much time left. Why would he come and work on something that he hates? He has the luxury of not doing it. So why? The little bit of time that you have left, why would you have to go and work with people that you hate, that hate you, and work on something that you hate? It doesn't make any sense, and that's why it's not true. And it sucks, as a fan. I would love to have George Lucas come back and fix Star Wars. I would love it, but we all have to kind of look at the reality of the situation and everything that's happened. It's not happening. So I just wanted to do a little video to explain all of this to everyone, so that way everyone is aware, because like I said, I was doing a live stream and a lot of people didn't know any of this stuff, and I was blown away by everyone in the chat going, what? So I decided to do a dedicated video to this. I would love to know what all of you guys think in the comments below. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, that's okay. Thank you so much for watching this far through, and until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you, because we are really, really, really gonna need it. Bye, everyone. Also, if you want to support the channel, go check out my Etsy store. The link is in the description below if you would like to continue to support me and my artwork. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and if you're new here, please take a minute to subscribe, hit the like, share the video, ring the bell for notifications. That way you don't miss any of my future streams or upcoming videos.